To begin the Dharma talk today, and I do want to leave plenty of time for questions and so forth from out of the practice. But let me begin with this. Two neighbors, let's call them Jack and Jill, oddly enough, had the same dream one night. And they dreamed that they needed to find their way home, to truly come home, to be at rest, to be who they truly were. And so when they woke up, Jack promptly went to the cellar, the bottom of his house, and started digging to find out if he could find this true home, his real roots, what was truly underfoot. Well, in digging up his basement, he ruined the electricity as well as the plumbing and the water and so on. But he didn't find what he was looking for. So he went up the nearby mountain near his home, leaving a lot of trash and other things along the way. Got to the top of the mountain, looked around, didn't see what he was looking for. So he came down the mountain, leaving more trash, trespassing in some people's land. Finally came back home and realized what he was looking for, that he had indeed been home in the deepest sense the whole time, but he couldn't really realize it, embody it. And that's the story of Jack and his dream. Jill, as I mentioned, had the same dream. Now, what did she do? Well, instead of digging up her cellar, she went out back and dug into her backyard and found water, fresh well water, which she could then share with her family and the neighbors. But she didn't find what she was looking for. So she also went up that mountain, picking up the trash that Jack had left along the way, also planting some trees and cleaning up the shrubs and the bushes. And when she got to the top of the mountain, she didn't find what she was looking for either. So she came down the mountain, picking up some more of Jack's trash, checking that the trees were well and had what they need. When she got home, like Jack, she also realized finally that what she had been so desperately seeking was here from the first, but she couldn't realize it or embody it. Now she could. I tell this tale, this story, because it may help you in your practice and also in your life. When we do what we do, when we practice, what are we really doing? What are we really looking for? Are we making things better, or are we making them worse? You might notice that in the story, both of those people, in the end, realized what they needed to realize. And yet, it's not exactly the same, is it? The stuff that Jack left behind and the stuff that Jill left behind are quite different, aren't they? Please consider well in your own life and in your own, perhaps very sincere practice, what you are doing for those around you, for the environment, for the world. What your practice is cannot be in conflict with that. Consider well, not just in your practice, but in your life. For some of us, this present world situation with COVID and so on, it has become a serious hindrance in our practice. Serious difficulties, perhaps depression, perhaps a feeling of great anxiety and despair and so on. And yet I've had the great good fortune to meet so many people around the world who are taking this opportunity, it is what it is, and finding out how to make best use of it. For example, so many of us now are spending a lot of time, right as we're doing now, sitting in front of a video or a computer, doing our work there. And we can do it well, or we can do it poorly. And we can use it, as we are now, as an actual avenue, a path in our practice to support us in our practice, not as an escape to go surfing on the net, but actually in a way to help us to share, to communicate, to commune with those around us who are also practicing in their own way. As I said, no, this is not the same as a physical retreat. There's a big difference. And yet, what we can do with this, what we have now, can be a precious pointer in our practice. It's up to you. It's up to you. If we can just open up to what is in the bottom of our heart, and you can do that whether there's COVID or not. In a way, it's a good wake-up call, but we didn't need it to wake up, did we? And yet, let it be what it is. To really open up to who we really are, to where we really stand, where we really sit. If we can really see where we are right here and now, whatever our actual circumstances, we can realize true freedom right where we are. There is no other place to do it. And again, I don't mean the idea or even the insight, the knowledge, even an experience. No, it's got to be more fundamental than that. We all do have what we need, but do you see at times how poorly you use it? Again, recall the story of Jack and Jill. How are you using the precious treasure, the gem, the jewel that you have, that you are? Do you see how precious beyond measure it is? And then, if you can truly see that, how can you not live it? Live it in the world. Yes, we are lay people. We're not running off to escape into a monastery. That's right. That can be a precious, precious place to really refine and deepen our practice. But we can't stay there. We can't stay there. We have to go beyond the monastery. If we do have that precious opportunity to spend time in a monastery. Oh, by all means do. I've done it, and it is precious indeed. It is so precious because it shows us we must return here fully. Otherwise, our practice is still half-assed. That's what a retreat like this is for. No, we're not going into a monastery. Most of us are not even leaving our home. What a luxury. And yet we can do the work that needs to be done right here and right now. There's no other time, no other place to do it. But it's got to be done all the way. I don't care whether you have a koan or you're just sitting or you're just being one with the breath. If you don't give all of yourself, well, you see, that's why you end up where you are, running in the same old circles. It's up to you. When you really see this precious opportunity that we have, again, whatever your actual conditions, when you really see what is under your feet, how can you not give all of yourself to the practice? Unless you're escaping, unless you're letting the old faulty wheels, your default system, running around in the same old circles that you already know are pointless and lead nowhere. Don't blame the practice. It's you. You must get serious. The one great matter of life and death is under your feet. And the ending of that one great matter is also under feet, under your foot, right here and now. You see, perhaps as Jack did, how we can use the practice to try to further our own ends and end up destroying instead. The practice must be thoroughgoing. If we are sincere, if we're honest, if we look under our feet, how can we not give all of ourselves? How can you waste your life being half-assed? Tell me. That would be the one great regret to me. Knowing better and yet living the rest of your life half-assed. That would be the great tragedy of this human life. We have this opportunity right here and right now, as you are, to see through. What is it? What is it? Who is this one? Don't be looking for cheap entertainment, cheap experiences. Freedom. I want to be free. I want to be free from what? You have got to see it all the way through. You have got to get to the point where you are free, even from the need to be free. Otherwise, you're just running around in the same old circles, chasing after something you call freedom, wrapping yourself up in chains and saying you want to be free. Through your own practice, giving all of yourself until it is clear beyond the shadow of a doubt. Nothing else will do. Don't tell me about your Kensho experiences. To be free from the very need to be free. Anything else is just another shackle, chain that you put on. Face it. The practice must be thoroughgoing. There's no way around it. We, practicing together, can share, can contribute, can encourage, can do so much for each other, but the essential work must be done by each and every one of us. It's obvious, huh? And there is no one here who cannot do it. Even to say do it. It must be done. When you get to that point, it will be done. Until then, yeah, there will be possibilities and you will have experiences and you will continue to delude yourself, as you already know. You must see it all the way through. That means embody it, realize it. There is no other way. And you can do it when you get to the point that you must do it, that you see this is what must be done in this life. No, it doesn't mean you have to give up your family and your home and your job. No, not at all. But you do have to devote yourself to this. You can't sit for 30 minutes and run off and use your cell phone and sit 30 minutes and run off to use your cell phone again. You're not practicing. And yet you can, when you see this is what must be done to live truly, it will be done. It takes time, but it will be done. As long as you have an option, an escape, you know very well, the ego self will take it. And then you'll say, oh, the practice is so hard. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's because you're not practicing. That's what's hard, not practicing. There was a guy at the time of Buddha, what was his name? Angulimala, ring garland of fingers. It might be helpful to consider in light of our present practice. But first, please feel free to stand up and stretch for a moment. I've already taken up the story of Angulimala, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. So I will just briefly repeat it here. This goes back to the Pali Suttas, the early suttas, supposedly at the time of Gautama Buddha, the world-honored one, Shakyamuni. Of course, there were other spiritual teachers and leaders at the time, and one of them had a very good disciple named Angulimala, came to be called Angulimala. It seems that this teacher was not fully realized because he became rather jealous of his own disciple. He could see that this disciple was so experienced that he would outshine the teacher. Angulimala, this disciple, would become better than his teacher. His teacher didn't like that. And so he gave Angulimala a final task to complete his spiritual practice, knowing that he probably could not do it. Therefore, this teacher could remain on top, so to speak. So he told Angulimala, now what you finally have to do is kill 1,000 people and cut off their finger, one finger from each person that you've killed, and make a garland, a necklace with their fingers. Well, being a good disciple of a guru, he proceeded to do that. He was a very strong person, so he could kill people. And then he cut off the finger and made a necklace of it. As the story goes, he killed 999 people. Then he happened to come across Gautama Buddha going out for his begging rounds. And he thought, wow, that'd make a real nice 1,000th finger, wouldn't it? A final finger. So he starts running, very strong man with his weapons to kill Gautama Buddha. He starts running as fast as he can. Gautama Buddha just continues walking at a normal pace, going out for his begging rounds. He doesn't slow up. He doesn't speed up. But the faster Angulimala runs, the shorter the distance he seems to get. He can't get closer to Shakyamuni, no matter how hard he runs. What's going on? So finally, Angulimala stops and he yells, "World honored one, world honored one." The world honored one, Gautama Buddha, turns around, continues walking at a regular pace. What? Angulimala yells, "Stop! Stop!" Because he wants to catch up to him and kill him. Well, Gautama Buddha, continuing to walk at a regular pace, turns around and says, "I have stopped. Now you stop." Angulimala says, "What? I stopped. I am stopped." He's still moving. And this being a story, Angulimala says, "But I have stopped. You have not." He's still walking. "Why do you say I should stop? I have stopped." And then, of course, Gautama Buddha, the world honored one, says, although he's still walking, it's fine, "I have stopped all craving, all delusion, all selfish desire. You have not." Boom. Angulimala had studied some spiritual practices. He went a bit off, a bit astray there. He became what we would now call a serial killer, a mass murderer. But there must have been something in the depths of his heart. And when the world honored one said those words, he realized something. And he actually became a disciple of the Buddha. Here's where the plot thickens. Here's where it becomes really interesting. Because he shaves his head, puts on the robes, and he becomes a monk under Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha making clear that you have renounced the evil of your life, that you have renounced this. But he has killed people in the area. This man's sister he may have killed. This man's mother or father or son or daughter. So when Angulimala goes out on the begging rounds himself to receive food, sometimes the people recognize it. He's shaved head, but that's Angulimala. That's the guy who killed my brother. And so sometimes they have stones and they throw stones at him and they break his bowl and they rip his rags and he becomes bloody and injured. And he goes back when the begging rounds are over, not very successful. And he tells Gautama Buddha sees him, what has happened? And Angulimala says, "I ran into some people that knew who I was, and they ripped my robes, they threw stones at me, they made me bleed." And Gautama Buddha, Shakyamuni, the world honored one, says, how fortunate How fortunate. You are able to get through this now rather than wait for such a long time to suffer. Because remember, it doesn't just disappear. He killed, according to the story, 999 people. That doesn't just disappear. I put on robes, everything's okay. No, it's not. But you see what this story can say to us here and now. I don't think any of us are mass murderers, but we all do what we do, don't we? Sometimes we regret it, huh? But to live in a way that here and now, you live fully and truly, which means in his case, sometimes he gets attacked. That's right. Sometimes he gets hurt. Sometimes he gets injured. That's right. What do you expect? And yet, it says in the story, Angulimala himself was able to become an arhat. He was able to be released in this life. Hell, I think if he can do it, all of you can do it, huh? We still have about 15 minutes, so I'd like to leave time now for questions or concern. Please, from out of the practice, not theoretical questions, from out of the actual practice for the benefit of all, please feel free to speak up. Thank you all for listening. And if you here have any questions also, please feel free. Huh?
Yeah, I have a question. Sometimes when I'm sitting, then I have a feeling as if something bumps into myself. And yeah, of course, then I can breathe through it. But I wonder, yeah, I don't know. Can you say something about that?
Yes, we all have that experience. It's true, huh? In a way, it's good that you realize you're bumping up against something. Yes, you're not just dwelling in a little dream, huh? A little fantasy. You bump up, it's well said. You bump up against something, or something bumps up against you. What is that? What is that? This can be a precious part of the practice. It's one thing I trust you can clearly see, you can discern. Is this just something that's coming up, what I had for breakfast this morning or something like that? Well, you can probably let that go, huh? But as you say, huh, some things you bump up against and maybe they keep coming back. And eventually you realize I have to look at this, really open myself up to this. What is this? In my own experience, I was desperate when I went to Japan 40 years ago. And so I just threw myself into the fundamental practice. As a result, I ignored a lot of stuff that I really should have dealt with. Over the years, if you're practicing properly, it comes back and bites you in the butt, as we say. And eventually I realized, okay, I've done this, but that other stuff needs to be dealt with too. That's right. So I would simply urge you to open up and see, what is it that you're bumping up against? Can you really embrace it? And again, depending on what it is, you may be able to say, oh, it's just that. It's okay. Let it go. And if you really let it go, it doesn't come back again. But other things may require your attention. and even may require action. You follow? It may become clear, I need to stop doing that. I need to quit my job. I need to talk to my boss about that. Now, I can't say what it is. It depends on the situation, of course. But if you can really open up to it, you find you have what you need. And sometimes it's enough just to really open up to it. Other times, yes, maybe you need to write a letter and apologize to someone, or accept an apology from someone. Does this help?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm sure this is many people's question, not just yours. Thank you for raising.
Thank you.
If anyone else would like to speak from their experience, please feel free.
Does anybody have any more questions? Edward.
Hello, Jeff.
Yes.
I would like to connect to Monique's question. Sometimes when I'm sitting and something comes up where you can't really understand what tries to get your attention, it can actually be thoughts. And we have a tradition of trying not to follow the thoughts. But sometimes I find it useful to follow these thoughts because it can speak to me about my life situation. But it would occasionally then involve sort of losing a bit track of where I am, the breath or whatever. But it's usually not very long. And sometimes I allow myself to do that. And for instance, this morning, I found a very profound inspiration to help me progress in life, which doing the meditation helped me to open up. I'm always feeling a bit bad about it because you're not supposed to do this. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, thank you, Edward. There is a place for thought. Human beings think. Awakened people think too. But where do they think from? Where does the thoughts come from? That's perhaps the real question, huh? When I pack in a little while to go back to Japan, I better think about check-in luggage or carry-on. I could be in big trouble. No, there's a place for thought. There's a place for thought. This silly pseudo Zen stuff of, if you stop thinking, dualistic thought, whatever. That's a good example of dualistic thought, huh? Stop dualistic thought and keep the non-dualistic thought. It's utter nonsense. But anyway, yeah. What does it mean to stop dualistic thought? As far as I can see, when people talk about it, they're just creating more dualistic thought in the name of, I don't know, non-dualistic thought. It's silly. It's silly. The thought must come from the ground itself, from the need itself. And we can see that. Where is this thought coming from? So there are practices, Edward, it's quite true. There are Buddhist meditation practices where you examine your thoughts. You also examine your feelings, your emotions, your memories, expectations, so on too. But there are practices in which you examine your thoughts. For example, you see, are these thoughts permanent or not? Do these thoughts have a ground in reality or not? Do these thoughts lead to more distress or not? Things like this. I trust you see, Edward, how this can go either way. It can become an endless intellectual exercise, or it can be a kind of incisive, perhaps something that you touched this morning, a kind of an insight into the way our mind works, what our mind is actually doing. So once again, there is a place for thought. There is a place for thought. We're human beings. To say, thinking is dualistic, that's itself a dualistic thought. You can get rid of that nonsense now. But the point is, where does that thought come from? You don't want to indulge in discursive thought. You follow, Edward? That's where you're kind of feel a little funny about it, right? It's true. You don't want to sit there for 30 minutes and just, create a whole scenario and think about something. But if there is something that genuinely needs your attention, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. But you yourself, I trust, are coming to discern that, to see that. You're right. We're not sitting here to think about things. That's right. That's right. You might say, we're here to make clear the source of thought, the true ground of our thoughts. Thus, we can be free of our thoughts, even as we think them. It's not a matter of stop thinking, but to think, as they say, without abiding in our thoughts. Does that help, Edward?
Very much so. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. If anyone else would like to speak up, I think we all think here. So please, from your own experience, feel free.